We have your top 10 tech choices in the current format of August 2022. Make sure you guys smash the crap out of that subscribe button so you guys don't miss out on more top tech choices here. Number one on our list here for top tech choice of the format is actually going to be Psychic Jumper. So we actually have a level 2 Psychic monster that has entered into the format here that a lot of players are looking at and going, what is your purpose? Well, since it's level 2, you can e-tele it out. You can play it with Gamma. You can pass your Gamma target over to your opponent and permanently take control, basically swippity-swappity field control with this guy. Is it absolutely amazing? I think it's cool. When you have things like this that can show up into a format and kind of take people off guard in terms of, you know, little innovations like this, it's things like this that when it works, it really shows people that, there is some level of innovation here that you can do. And that's what you want to see in Sprite decks right now, is little things like this. Number 2 on our list here is going to be the Gate and the Dark Summoning Beast over something like Deep Sea Diva for Sprite. Now, if you've been looking at Sprite, you've seen, oh my gosh, Swap Frog is like the best go-to card. Yeah, it is. But you have a lot of lists out here right now that are foregoing, you know, the inclusion of Deep Sea Diva, and they're going down, you know, the Gate with the Beast in order to get the additional normal summon. You know, it basically just gives you the ability to streamline things a little bit easier versus, you know, 4 cards versus 3 included in the deck. I feel like it leads to one more brick, but people are seeming to having a little bit more success with this. It didn't show up at a lot of regionals, but the regionals it did show up, it did have a pretty decent turnover rate for. So I guess you love to see it in terms of what is being presented here in the metagame. So not too bad. To nobody's surprise, Offerings to the Doomed is still continuing on here with its presence in the game. You know, through Nationals here, or the Yu-Gi-Oh! Championship event earlier on last month, you did see that Offerings to the Doomed has been showing up. And having a quick play spell card that gives you an immediate out to popping something versus, you know, something like Compulse, where, you know, trap cards need to set their turn. So what you get is a utility out to out something during the opponent's turn, and you get a more pseudo out to handle something on your turn. Yes, you lose a draw phase off of it, but with how fast modern era Yu-Gi-Oh is, losing that draw phase doesn't really matter. 95% of, you know, decks can go ahead and, oh, I recovered, you know, didn't need to draw that card for turn. So Offerings to the Doomed has become a massive pick-me-up in the current format just because of the power that it gives to the game. Next up here I want to mention is King of the Swamp. Now, the reason why I'm putting King of the Swamp here in this was King of the Swamp has been the glue that is holding together the Tier Elements archetype. You know, initially I saw a lot of builds that would go with like danger stuff. You know, people would try like the Punk Engine, an example, to be able to facilitate the Chaos Roller. No. The thing that these builds have gone to at the moment has been King of the Swamp. You know, build in Polymerization. You decide if you want to go with the Fallen of Albaz package in the deck to basically make sure that you're holding the deck together in a way that makes it able to be played. So overall, I know putting King of the Swamp in the tech choices feels a little bit off, but it definitely has become that glue that holds this deck together and gives it the chance to do its thing right now. So I'm happy to see the tier is starting to take off, but it definitely needs that King of the Swamp. Next up is your choice between Talents and Dark Ruler No More in Sprite. Now, the reason why I consider this a tech option is between Talents and Dark Ruler No More, you have one where you can apply battle damage, you have one you cannot apply battle damage, versus, you know, only being able to answer one thing versus a whole board. So that's where things kind of get very interesting in terms of your choice window here for what you want to do. While Talents has the multi-functionality to handle, you know, going into the hand for ripping, you know, taking control of something, which you can immediately exceed with in Sprite. You know, if you take a Gigantic, for example, congratulations, it's now yours. You can go ahead and stick it underneath your another Gigantic. I don't know, man. It's little dumb interactions like that people look at cards and they're like, oh, you know, that seems very useful. And I do think that Talents is winning in the overall category so far for this. Next up is going to be Super Polymerization, thanks to Garuda. Now, when you look at, honestly, Rogue, this format, you know, Sprite's not the one playing Super Polymerization out here. I don't think I've seen one Sprite list at all that is playing Super Polymerization, but the amount of these decks out here that are looking at Super Poly because of Garuda is really high. Obviously, you know, like Eldritch and, you know, Despia, the two big contenders were already looking at Super Poly, just got a fresh new card that says, oh, I can break your board just a little bit easier. And that's really kind of what they needed. Like, putting a new Super Poly target in the game did change up a lot of things. And I think it's a good thing that they did add this into the pool to make life a little bit easier. So shout out to Garuda, actually giving life to the countermeasure out here. TCG actually stepped up for this one. Next up is Skill Drain, but into your elements. Now you're probably like, whoa, Robbie. Yeah, there were a few lists out of this weekend that showed up that I haven't covered just yet on this channel that showed up playing Skill Drain into your elements. Now you're probably like, well, what's the point of doing that? Well, I mean, you're a graveyard-based deck. Like, you go ahead and you mill your stuff. You can set up your DRACO-UTOPIAN. You can hide behind a window before you have to Skill Drain, for example. You know, you have so many stupid things that you can do with your elements that even we saw an Eldritch variant show up that was like, oh yeah, you know, I'll go ahead and do all my tier element plays, go ahead and play it with Eldritch. Guess what? Like, I can set up a whole Eldritch board. And, you know, if you see the Skill Drain, it just synergizes. If you don't see the Skill Drain, you don't get punished for it. Like, I think it's one big thing that people need to understand is, like, these little niche tech choices that you can play with this deck, they don't punish you, all right? They're just additional things and resources to play. Next up is the easiest one here, Goes in Rivalry, and There Can Only Be One. Though, interestingly enough, I think There Can Only Be One has been the one that I've seen show up more in Rogue, but Goes in Match has been seeing a decent amount of play as a card to kind of stunt the advance of things. I mean, who knew that having a generic card that could jam attributes on the field would do its job? I've definitely seen less Rivalry, though. Rivalry is definitely taken a step back. So, in terms of the Floodgate race, Goes in Rivalry and TC Boo are all still present in the format. They don't have any reason not to be present. Like, I think unless you see like a completely monotone, you know, deck return to the game, it's all the same attribute and all the same type, that these two cards will, well, actually all three of them, will still continue to see some sort of play. Like, that's just kind of how Yu-Gi-Oh! Is at the moment. Ever since things have expanded out, they've definitely been doing their thing. Next up is DRACO-UTOPIAN Aura. While this card did not see a huge amount of play, there was an Eldritch list out of Toronto that caught my attention that made Top Cut that actually played this. Now, I think this card is very good. It's basically just a free Solemn that allows you to jam out something, and with the additional effect of, oh, hey, you want to, you know, you have a monster in your hand that you bricked on or something, you can go ahead and discard it, and then Monster Reborn what you're taking. My problem with that is I don't think you're ever going to have that monster in your hand unless it's like an Eldritch monster. If you have a broken Golden Lord in your hand, oh, straight get it out of here, bro. But that'd be like the one situation that I would see that coming up. So for the most part, yeah, I like what I'm seeing in terms of Utopian Draco Aura, seeing a little bit of play. That's why I put it in the top tech choices, because it was really actually cool to see this thing show back up and just catch people off guard. And last one here is Underworld Goddess. Now, Underworld Goddess, so it sees very niche play in the windows that it had, but a few extra decks this weekend, you know, thanks IP, we're actually looking at Underworld Goddess, because you can, you know, rev up the IP and go into it during the opponent's turn, because it's a free out through the IP. Alright, while once again, it's a little bit more niche like Utopia and Draco Aura, it is still there in the format as something that players are doing that you definitely want to see. So those are your top 10 tech choices for what's going on right now in the August format. What do you guys think? Please leave a comment down below. Make sure you guys smash the crap out of that subscribe button, and I'll see your beautiful faces back here later today, guys. Peace out. Patrons, thank you.
Thank you so much for watching. Check out these other videos.